All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever wondered exactly what lengths people are willing to go to for a few views, a few likes, and honestly, just a little bit of cash? Today, we are exploring a really fascinating and frankly pretty intense corner of the modern internet. We're looking closely at a platform called Dare Market. It's essentially a website where people post actual financial bounties, challenging other users to go out and complete outrageous, real-world stunts. Think of it like a massive global game of truth or dare, except it's entirely focused on the dares and the whole thing is completely monetized. In this explainer, we're going to examine the very real risks of turning human attention into cold, hard cash and what that actually means for the creators who are right in the thick of it. To really wrap our heads around this, you kind of have to see exactly what is on the menu here. And I want to be clear, these aren't hypothetical scenarios, these are actual real bounties posted directly on the platform. We are talking about things like jumping bare ass onto a pile of thumbtacks. Then you have the wet floor shot. This is where someone mops a dirty floor, wrings out the mop, and then literally takes a shot of that dirty liquid. Yeah, mop water. There's also bounties for drinking your own urine. Or on the slightly less gross but incredibly awkward side of things, going into a McDonald's, asking an employee to film you, and making bizarre noises while sucking the ice cream out of a cone. It is visceral, it's weird, and the crazy part is, it's all being done for money. So looking at that list of gross-out stunts and realizing that people are getting paid to publicly debase or endanger themselves, it naturally brings us to a pretty massive question. Is the internet now just a real-life Black Mirror episode? I mean, we used to watch shows like Black Mirror to imagine this dystopian future where technology pushes humanity too far. But now, a lot of critics are pointing out that this dystopia kind of feels like our current reality. The technology and the financial incentives have completely merged to create a system that absolutely thrives on extreme behavior. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, monetizing internet attention. Second, moderating harm and danger. Third, the new advertising loophole. And fourth, careers in the dare economy. Let's start with Section 1, monetizing internet attention and the attention economy. To really grasp how a site like Dare Market operates, we have to define the broader ecosystem it lives in. The attention economy is basically a system where human attention is treated as a scarce commodity, something to be captured, bottled up, and monetized. In a world with literally endless content, getting someone to stop scrolling and actually look at your video is incredibly valuable. Platforms like Dare Market are essentially a highly distilled, hyper-concentrated version of this economy. They cut right to the chase, asking, how do we capture attention right now? Well, by posting the craziest, most shocking things imaginable, and then directly translating that shock value into money. And here is the exact step-by-step mechanism of how that attention is bought and sold. Step 1, someone posts a financial bounty for a specific dare on the website. Step 2, a creator goes out into the real world, does the dare, and films it for TikTok or Twitter to use as proof. Step 3, that submission gets reviewed to make sure they actually followed the rules of the bounty. And Step 4, if it passes the test, the creator gets paid. It's an incredibly straightforward, gamified loop that turns wild, unpredictable behavior into a simple transaction. What's truly fascinating, though, is how the platform takes an existing internet joke and just throws gasoline on the fire. Take the Scientology speedruns, for example. The goal here was simple but chaotic. Run as deep into the front door of a Scientology building as you possibly can, before security stops you. It became this massive trend. People were actually mapping out the different floors to gamify it properly. One viral run even involved a dozen little people sprinting in all at once. But the real kicker here? In these highly viral videos, the creators are specifically yelling out, "Dare Market made me do it." So the platform recognized a viral trend, slapped a bounty on it, and significantly amplified the behavior. Which brings us to Section 2, moderating harm and danger. Exactly where is the line? Because when you start attaching cash bounties to real-world chaos, you have to ask, where exactly does creative expression end and actual physical harm begin? We have to look at this impartially, because there are 2 very distinct sides to this debate. On one side, critics argue that financially incentivizing these acts creates a really dangerous slippery slope. For instance, there was a dare where someone effectively crowdfunded, asking for $200 just to put his bare hand into a hot panini maker, which obviously resulted in burns. So it becomes this massive debate over the ethical responsibilities of a tech platform. Does a user's choice to do something dumb absolve the site from facilitating that harm? But then, on the flip side, you have the founder of Dare Market, Iza, who strongly pushes back against the idea that the site is just some Wild West free-for-all. She maintains the platform is actually strictly moderated, and her defense is that anything blatantly illegal or objectively life-threatening simply will not be approved. Furthermore, she argues that if an adult user chooses to do a challenge that might cause some minor self-harm, well, that's ultimately their own personal responsibility. Now, it's important to realize this extreme behavior didn't just happen overnight. The incentive to monetize attention has been escalating for years. To put this into perspective, back in 2018, there was a tragic incident where a YouTuber accidentally killed her partner during a stunt to see if a thick book could stop a bullet. More recently, we saw this exact same dynamic in the crypto space with a site called Pump.fun. People were doing horrific, attention-grabbing stunts, things involving animal abuse or even literal self-immolation, setting themselves on fire, all just to artificially inflate the value of meme coins. And that brings us to right now, where platforms like Dare Market are effectively formalizing and normalizing these bounties for viral video challenges. But the true underlying engine powering all of this chaos? It's the social media algorithms themselves. This content does well because recommendation systems fundamentally prioritize outrage and shock. They literally feed on it. If you want to go viral today, you can't just repeat yesterday's stunt. You have to constantly escalate the extremity of your content. If the algorithms didn't reward outrageous behavior with clicks and views, these dares wouldn't even exist. So platforms and creators find themselves locked in this never-ending cycle, constantly pushing the limits just to capture a tiny sliver of that attention economy. Moving on to Section 3, the new advertising loophole. This is where brands join the chaos. And this brilliantly illustrates a hidden layer to all this that most viewers totally miss. Mainstream corporate brands are secretly feeding this extreme ecosystem. The founder of Dare Market actually admits this pretty openly, saying, "It doesn't feel like traditional advertising, it's more like a human billboard campaign." What's actually happening is that companies are showing up to platforms like this with massive marketing budgets. If a brand has, say, $100,000 for a launch, they don't want to buy a boring banner ad anymore. Instead, they work with the platform to invent a dare, using that money to manufacture an organic-looking trend. So all those creators out there doing wild things, a lot of them are, knowingly or unknowingly, serving as foot soldiers for corporate marketing campaigns. For brands, it's a really savvy but super risky trade-off. Think about it. Traditional ads look polished and corporate, while Dare campaigns have this gritty, authentic, user-generated feel that completely bypasses our natural ad blockers. And with consumer action, you passively watch a traditional ad on TV, but with a Dare, people are actively participating in a real-world movement. But the brand risk shifts dramatically. A traditional ad is a highly controlled, very low-risk environment. A Dare campaign, that is a total wild card. If a brand starts a funny trend, and the algorithmic engine pushes users to escalate it further and further for views, suddenly a mainstream, family-friendly brand might find themselves associated with something terrible happening in the real world. Finally, Section 4, careers in the Dare economy. Who is actually making a living off this? Let's look at the human beings on the other side of the screen for a minute. The creators running these platforms actually have a very specific philosophy. They believe society pushes people into this strict, suffocating mold. Go to college, graduate, work a 9-to-5 corporate job until you retire. But they argue that mold isn't for everybody. From the perspective of the platform's founder, the Dare economy is genuinely empowering. They frame it as a brand new way to monetize yourself, reject that traditional corporate suffering, and become a totally independent creator. But there is a pretty sharp contrast between that dream and the reality on the ground. The creator's dream is to build a lucrative, full-time career entirely out of fun stunts, permanently escaping the 9-to-5 grind. The founder even points out that there is a core community who already treat this as their full-time job. However, when you actually crunch the numbers and look at the financial reality, it tells a slightly different story. A lot of the bounty sums are actually pretty small. The financial benefit a creator gets in exchange for risking deep public embarrassment or even minor physical injury is often totally negligible. So while it might be a wild side hustle, there really isn't a standout example yet of someone who has built an incredible, sustainable life and real wealth purely from participating in these dares. So what does this all mean? The thought I really want to leave you with today is this. We've just seen how platforms literally gamify attention. We've seen how the algorithms constantly reward escalation. We've even seen how major corporate brands piggyback on all this chaos. But when attention becomes the ultimate currency, who bears the true cost of the extreme? Is it the creators out there chasing pennies for a fleeting viral moment? The platforms navigating the really murky waters of content moderation? Or is it us, the viewers, steadily normalizing a real-life Black Mirror. It's a fascinating dynamic, and it's one that is absolutely going to reshape how we view the internet. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.